Hi, I'm Steve Bell and welcome to our latest Security in Focus podcast. In this edition, I'm excited to give you an in-depth overview of our latest release of Gallagher Command Center, version 840. We release a new version of Gallagher Command Center twice a year, and recently we have fully released Command Center version 8.40. We have already published many of the extensions and improvements included in 840, but I thought it'd be great for me to talk to some of the product managers and R&D team who developed the updates. Since this is a pretty long podcast, we have included an index into the different topics and the notes that go with the podcast, and the time that they start, so that if you want, you can skip to the topics that most interest you. There are some exciting new features and extensions in this version, and I expect that there is something in there for everybody. The headline new feature in Command Center version 840 is Digital ID. This is the latest extension to our Mobile Connect app. And we see Mobile Connect as being way more than just a credential opening doors. I'm talking with Trish Thompson. She's our product strategist. And Trish, can you tell us what is Digital ID?
Well, Digital ID is about taking that photo ID that is normally printed, say, on your access control card, or it might even be printed on a separate piece of plastic, and it's moving that to an app on your phone. So we already have a secure element, our credential, that is stored on your phone, and that can be used to access stores. So that's all within our Mobile Connect app. The Digital ID is about pulling in that visual element, the photo ID, onto your phone as well.
Cool. And where did the idea for this come from?
So when we spoke to some of our universities in particular, and we found that the student ID is really important to them. First of all, it does carry their brand, but it's also used by students to access a whole range of services on campus and also to gain discounts from shops and businesses off campus. So it was really important to them that we find a way to bring that visual and not just the secure element into our Mobile Connect app before they could use it for their students. They also wanted longer term for us to make it possible for them to pull these digital IDs into their own university app. So part of what we've delivered is the ability to have those digital IDs available in our Mobile Connect SDK. And what that means is that any organisation can build their own app and pull in the digital ID as well as our secure mobile credential.
Okay, and for a customer wanting to transition from their current plastic cards through to the digital ID, what do they need to think about?
Yeah, so we realised quite early on that it's very likely that there's going to be a transition period where some people will have a printed photo ID and other people will have transitioned to digital IDs. So we wanted to make really sure that the digital version of the photo ID could exactly mimic the printed version. So there's no confusion for people using those photo IDs during that transition period. And to do that, we've made sure that within Command Center it's a really simple process to copy an existing photo ID and turn it into a digital ID. So that means it's really fast to get up and running with digital IDs, and it also means that in that transition period they can look identical.
It sounds like we've made it as easy as possible to transition from plastic to digital IDs. So Trish, have we looked at the costs and benefits for the customers in this?
Well, I think the most important value we're delivering is around that ability to remove the cost of having to issue any physical access control cards. And that can be quite a cost saving. For example, a card, by the time you've sourced the card itself and maybe you've printed and encoded data to that card, and then you've had to get the card to the person, and sometimes that might mean mailing it to them. So all of that cost adds up, and by shifting all of that into the digital world, we can actually introduce quite significant cost savings for a university or any other organisation. It also means with a physical card they can get lost, they can get stolen or damaged and have to be replaced, and again that ongoing replacement cost is also reduced. It's also much more convenient because both the mobile credential and the digital ID can be issued remotely. So we're removing, particularly at universities where there's often an issue at enrolment time, where there's long queues of students that are waiting to get their access control card. We can make that a lot easier by doing all of that issuance remotely. And even if those universities still need to have students have a photo taken to turn up on that ID, we've also made that a whole lot easier and mobilised it. So our Command Centre mobile app can now take a person's photo, you can upload that directly to Command Centre, and a couple of seconds later it's appearing on a digital ID on that student's phone. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we've introduced in digital ID the fact that it is live. So what that means is in a university, for example, you might give a student a photo ID, and then 3 months later that person leaves the university. It's often difficult or even impossible to retrieve that printed photo ID, so it lives on as if it's still real and current. But once you've moved to digital IDs, as soon as you revoke that ID from somebody, it's removed from their phone. And that ability also applies to data that appears on the ID. So, for example, if you have a change of name, or perhaps a role change, or even a photo change, all of that, as soon as that change happens in Command Centre, it's immediately synced through to the ID on the phone and it gets updated. And I've watched this happen in real life, and it all happens really quickly.
That sounds really good. So, is this thing easy to copy? Can somebody just take a screenshot from one phone and display it on another to take someone's identity?
Well, it's definitely much harder to copy a digital ID than an ID that's been printed onto a piece of plastic card. And we do that in a number of ways. The first one being every time that app opens, it updates the ID and the information on it, and it logs that time of last update, and it's visible inside the app. So if you're somebody, a security guard, who is checking that digital ID, you can first check to see that the time is current. We've also introduced an animated activity indicator in the app. So if that is moving, it also shows you that the app is connected to Command Centre and the data on it is live. If you need more confirmation than that, you can tap through the app, you can full screen the ID, you can check that it's actually our Gallagher Mobile Connect application. So anybody who is doing this regularly will know exactly what to look for, and they'll be able to spot a screenshot or a fake app in just a few seconds.
So what if the phone's not actually connected to the network?
So if there's actually no network connection, we also place a warning message inside the app on the digital ID page. So again, you will know.
Cool. And what about the security of the data? There is personal data being transferred between Command Centre and a phone. How do we secure that?
Yeah, we were really mindful about that. So we've actually implemented an industry standard end-to-end encryption for our digital IDs. And what that means is the data is fully encrypted in transit from the time it leaves the Gallagher server to its arrival on the phone. And the only devices which have access to the cryptographic keys are the Gallagher server and the phone itself. So what that means is that even if the data is intercepted in transit, it still can't be decrypted or viewed by anyone, and that actually includes Gallagher.
So if I'm a contractor and I go to several sites with Command Centre and they're using digital IDs, how does this work? Do I have more than one?
Yeah, definitely you can have more than one. In fact, even within one Command Centre site or licence, a person can have multiple digital IDs issued to them just like they can have multiple access cards. So in a university setting, for example, if you are both a student and also on staff, you can have 2 digital IDs, and both of those are visible inside Mobile Connect. But to get back to your original question, if you're a contractor and you're moving between different Command Centre sites, each of those sites can still issue you a credential on the phone, and once you have that credential from the site, they can then issue you digital IDs, one or more, and all of those will be visible inside our Mobile Connect application.
In a modern smart building system, it's key that all these different systems work together. And when you've got an access control system and an elevator system, they need to work together to make a seamless experience for the user. Rob Hughes is our product manager responsible for Command Centre. Updating and improving our elevator integrations is a key goal of version 840. I remember back in the day when we did our first elevator integration, The key entity that we worked with there was the elevator car. We expected a card reader to be in the elevator car, and people would go in the car, badge the card, and they'd be allowed to push one or other buttons. It's all different now, Rob. So can you explain the difference?
So traditionally, from an access control perspective, the card reader, the credential reader, was within the car itself. These days, it's external to the elevator car, so it might be located within a turnstile or a kiosk within a lobby, and the card holder presents their card, requests a floor, and the elevator system is going to allocate that card holder to a car that's going to be, optimise the convenience for the person getting direct to the floor they need, as well as the overall utilisation of the cars in the building.
So we've been doing a project related to ThyssenKrupp integration, and what have we done there?
We've had a relationship with ThyssenKrupp for a number of years. We first integrated with their serial or RS-232 protocol. More prevalent today is their Ethernet-based protocol. So from our perspective, that required a new development of an interface. So what we have done is we've actually taken the opportunity to rethink how we integrate with ThyssenKrupp as an elevator system, and moving away from the concept of the elevator car to the kiosk. So the kiosk is the thing we're interested in. The kiosk includes, from a physical perspective, the kiosk includes a card reader associated with it, as well as the floor selection hardware from ThyssenKrupp as well. So that it's a lot more reflective of what is actually being deployed in a building.
So Rob, how does that change the way that the user interacts with the system? Is it a better experience overall?
What we have done as part of this development is try to focus on the technician's experience. So when someone is deploying the interface, how intuitive is it? Does it make sense? And with that come a number of troubleshooting advantages and all the background work. So for example, ThyssenKrupp have an auto discovery component, so that when the technician is configuring the Gallagher side of it, we can put a call out to ThyssenKrupp and receive all of the configuration of kiosks and elevator groups and floors that are configured, and then it's a matter of mapping those to the Gallagher system. So it's a lot more intuitive.
So Rob, what's the next steps on our elevator integrations journey?
So 840 sees a release of our ThyssenKrupp Ethernet protocol, and we will continue to extend the feature richness.
Cool. And when we get other integration requests or other integrations for other companies, elevator companies, will we be using that same model from now on?
Absolutely. So that's a reusable architecture.
And I think we've done some more work with Kone integration.
That's right. So again, with Kone, we've had a successful relationship with them for a number of years. Recently, we've undergone their new certification program to be endorsed against their latest controller and hardware technology. So we have successfully gained that certification, which lists us as an endorsed partner of Kone.
With the COVID-19 pandemic going around the world, all our customers have had to think about how they can keep people separated and minimise contact and things like that. And that has led to one of the requests from a customer to do some changes to our visitor management solution.
So from 840, using our visitor management reception client, mobile credentials can now be issued. So this is, again, minimising the amount of time that visitors will be lingering within the reception area, the lobby. So those credentials can be assigned to the visitor prior to their arrival. So when they arrive, it's just a matter of enabling those once they're marked on site.
And I guess that saves having to pass a card that's physically been in the hands of the receptionist over to the visitor, and that potential of passing something on, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. One of the observations post-COVID is, people are quite happy to avoid touching shared screens. Your confidence in the relative cleanliness of your own personal device, and just giving some extra assurity to both the receptionist and the person visiting as well.
Yeah, cool. And we've got some changes to some of our document scanners.
In 840, we're adding support for a couple of new devices. There's the Accurant ID 150 and also the Gemalto 1000, which offers a passport scanning option. So there's a couple of different options there to suit customer needs.
From time to time, we do retire a feature or two out of our product, and in 840, there's one that we've removed. Rob, tell us about that.
So the smart card log-on feature is something that's been in the product for a number of years. What it did was allow privileged operators to log on to our configuration client using a MyFair Classic card instead of a password. From a security point of view, we have strongly recommended against our customers using MyFair Classic for a card technology. It is compromised. So we've taken the step of removing that from 840. What we do have as a replacement solution is FIDO2 token log-on authentication. So that is available from 830.
Daniel McVeigh is our Senior Product Manager for both our high security and devices portfolios. In version 840 of Command Centre, there are a number of enhancements to our high security portfolio, and we also discuss our compliance to a couple of the UK government CP&I standards. To top it all off, we both are really excited to announce a new card reader. So let's get started. Dan, we've done a small project to meet compliance with the US ICD 705 standards for SCIFs. Could you start by telling us what a SCIF is?
SCIFs are stand for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facilities, and what they typically are is that these are highly secure rooms within government where typically you might be holding very secure conversations, top secret conversations. You might be storing information that is relevant to national security that you need to make sure is safely protected. They're typically characterised by having air-gapped environments, so there's no network connectivity to the outside world. And so some of the work that we've done in version 840 is to support this US standard for those areas to make sure that our product complies to all the clauses to that standard.
Okay, and moving on then, we've done some work recently over the last year or so with the UK government on their CP&I standards. Maybe if you could tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, sure, Steve. We've done a lot of focus on UK government, on some of their high security needs. And again, when you're talking about highly secure environments such as SCIFs, you're also looking at very secure access control to these environments. So we've developed a version of the T20 for the UK, a high security variant, which has a lot of extra protective measures, but suffice to say that it's a very highly secure version of the T20 appropriate for those locations.
Okay, and that's the readers and token standards, and all our potential high security customers can find that on the CP&I CSE.
Absolutely, CSE listing site, which is a public website, accessible, where you can see the products that comply to the CP&I readers and tokens standard.
CAP stands for Cyber Assurance of Physical Security Systems, and that's another UK government standard for CP&I. So, Dan, can you tell us about that?
This is a real badge of honour for us. This is a very tough cybersecurity standard for protecting critical national infrastructure in the UK. And it involved not only complying to that standard, which was very rigorous, and rigorous not only in terms of our compliance to the clauses, but also to the testing involved with third-party test labs. But it also involved someone from the UK coming out and evaluating Gallagher's build processes, making sure that the way that we built our product and manufactured them was in complete alignment with the standard. So very tough standard to meet. We have met that, and again, proof of that is in our CSE listings.
And another one then we've releasing in version 840 is compliance to the ASNZ 60839 access control standard.
Right, well this is an international standard, it's an IEC standard that has now been adopted in Australasia, but is also used in other parts of the world as well. There was one clause in there that in a deep review of the clauses we decided that we needed to develop on to ensure that we complied fully to the standard. That was around lockout of incorrect PIN attempts. So what that was basically looking to cater to was protecting against someone, for example, losing their card, someone else picking it up, badging it at an access control reader, and then attempting to enter lots of different pins to try and guess which pin is being entered. Effectively a brute force attack on the pin on the card. So what this feature does is it ensures that if someone enters a number of attempts, for example, could be 3, 4, 5 attempts, the card will be locked out of the system for a period of time.
Lastly, with you, the one I want to talk about and the one I'm probably most excited about is a release of a brand new reader in our range. Tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm very excited about this one as well. It's the T30 reader. And so effectively with our reader range, we had a lot of feedback that it would be great to have a credential plus PIN reader that was very tightly focused around access control. So we have a current T20 reader, which can act both as an access reader and an alarms terminal. Lots of great advanced functionality, but a lot of the times customers were just wanting a card plus PIN reader that looked great, performed well, could use a lot of the same credentials that we currently use, our cards, our mobile credentials as well, and a lot of our higher end credentials. But there was something that was aesthetically pleasing, wasn't as big as the T20, more appropriately priced position as well, and something that was really environmentally tough too. And so that's what we're delivering in the T30, and we're really pleased with the results there.
Thanks very much, Dan. Sounds like the areas, the high security and the devices, we've actually delivered quite a lot in this last period of time.
And we've got more to come. Thanks, Steve.
Gallagher has had great long-term relationships with mining companies, and some of those relationships go as far back as the late 1990s. In 2009, in version 601 of Command Centre, we released the first version of our compliance module. In that, we created a new entity in Command Centre. It's called a competency. A competency can map to a number of things, and for example, it may map to a driver's license, but that driver's license might be for a really heavy earth moving machine, or it could map to other things like first aid certificates. So it's quite general in its ability to be used in different industries and for different reasons. Innovative thing we did there is that we allow these competencies to be used amongst a bunch of rules at time of access. So, when someone badges their card to go through a door or a turnstile, we can check a bunch of extra rules to make sure they're allowed to go in. We might choose to show them on the display of the T20 that their competency is about to expire and they should go and get it retested for it, or it could be that they aren't allowed in because their competency is expired. Since then, there have been many additions to our compliance subsystem, and in 840 there are more. Pascal Howell is our product manager and Wayne Froggatt is our business analyst on this project. Pascal, can you give us an overview of random selection?
Sure. So in 830 we merged random selection into our core product. With this we added flexibility and a couple of cool new features that our customers love. So one of the cool features we added with random selection is the ability to randomly select someone based on a percentage probability. So with this, you can select someone based on their access group membership, a schedule. So say you only wanted to select card holders or employees from 9 till 5, and in that period is when the selection probability occurs, and you can configure the probability of selection. So, for example, you want to select 5% of employees during 9 till 5 who also belong to a specific access group. Another cool feature we added was the ability to configure a selection message. So when someone is selected, a message will appear on the T20 providing the person who has been selected with more information as to why they've been selected and potentially their next steps, where they need to go to action their selection. With this, the ability to acknowledge the message has also been provided, so it enforces that the employee kind of reads the message, acknowledges that they have read the message and that they know what to do next. We've also made sure that we have captured the ability to use competencies with this feature as well. So when someone's selected, you can configure a specific competency, which is either expired or disabled upon their selection. When this occurs based on the configuration of the competency and the access zones it's applied to, the cardholder or employee will be denied access to the site based on that configuration. So just a quick use case for you on how a site is currently using this. They have a random selection item configured for drug testing, and they want to select 5% of their cardholders to meet their site and industry standards and regulations. So they have the schedule on at all times, and when employees turn up to site, they are badged, they present their credential to the T20. Someone is selected, and there is a selection message that turns up on the T20 saying, "You've been selected for drug testing. Please report to the medical centre for your drug test." Based on this message, the employee then goes to the drug centre. They are drug tested, and based on their test result, their competency is either, if they fail, it's left disabled, so they are restricted access onto site. They can't go any further. If it is passed and they don't have any drugs in their system, then their competency is re-enabled and they're allowed to go on with their day-to-day work.
So Wayne, what about the extensions to random selection in version 840?
So in version 840, we've introduced overdue arrivals to our random selection feature. We can ensure selected cardholders are presenting themselves for drug and alcohol or other testing within a certain period of time. You can configure the areas where they need to turn up, and you can configure how many hours they need to present themselves for that testing. When they fail to present themselves for testing, we can also raise alarms, and those alarms can be notified through our improved personalised notification feature, where we can now optionally carbon copy individuals in roles such as supervisors, one-ups and card administrators.
Just a quick one then. So you told me a bit earlier that we'd heard from a customer site that they wanted to do something in relation to COVID testing. How did that work?
So we recently had a request around compatibility with COVID testing. It's an interesting use case, and random selection can be used as a way to randomly select employees for COVID testing. After employees have been selected, they must go to a site testing clinic for a COVID test. It's really an unbiased way to ensure employees don't feel targeted due to the new normal we see ourselves in today.
Security Health Check is an innovative cybersecurity audit tool for Gallagher Command Centre systems. I'm sitting with Scott Ritter. He's our Senior Product Manager responsible for Security Health Check and a bunch of other things. And over the last 18 months, we received some awards for Security Health Check.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I suppose over the last 2 years, we've had 4 releases of the Security Health Check, this being the 4th one. And yeah, over that time, we've received more than 6 awards globally in the US, UK, Australia and New Zealand, probably culminating recently in the Award for Innovation with the Asia Pacific Stevie Awards.
Cool. So maybe you could start by giving us an overview of some of the different features we've added.
Yeah, so each release we update the Security Health Check. We have a look through potential vulnerabilities that can be identified through the systems. So one of the main tests we've added into version 1.4 of the Security Health Check is a check to ensure the files haven't been tampered. Checking that the files that are installed as part of the Command Centre application are genuine and issued by Gallagher. We verify the Gallagher signature and make sure that's valid and all authentic.
So it's pretty common knowledge that weekend communications are not secure, and we believe they're a vulnerability to a system. So we've added a test that checks for weekend readers.
And we've also enhanced that test to check whether that weekend signal, sometimes they're needed to be used, but is protected by a HPAS third-party reader module.
Okay, and so the third-party reader module just creates a secure communication, and what, you'd put that module right behind or right beside the weekend reader?
Yeah, right beside the weekend reader, and if possible, protect it by a similar tamper-proof connection that you would with the reader itself.
So Scott, we've got one here labelled controller firmware test. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, well, we want to ensure that when Command Centre's upgraded, that every controller has the corresponding version of controller code. And while they can run for a period of time with the previous version controller code, we'd like to see all sites running the corresponding version. So we'll go through and interrogate all the controllers and identify any that aren't running on the latest version of controller code.
Yeah, so that may not necessarily be a security issue, but it is a system health issue when we've got stuff that's out of date. Okay, and the last one on the list here we've got is about checking about operators that haven't logged in. So why would we want to do that?
We want to really ensure a minimum privilege model within Command Centre. So we're checking here for any operators that haven't logged into the system for the last 60 days, with only those that need to log on are logging in.
The security of our Command Centre system is one of the key priorities for Gallagher. Each version has some improvements, and version 840 is no different. Rob Cowsley is one of our OSCP certified penetration testers on our cyber security team. In 840, Rob has produced a new document that identifies different security zones. But hey, maybe it's best if I let you describe it, Rob.
So essentially the security zones document is there to give you some guidance around what hardware you want to use in what areas. So the zones there's 4 zones. They're kind of going from a level 1 zone, which is like a car park with a barrier arm or something, all the way up to like high security sites for government and military. And essentially the guidance it's giving you at the moment is what hardware or technologies you should be looking to use in those areas. So, for instance, a barrier arm on a car park, you might be perfectly happy to use a QR code to go through. But by the time you're talking about very high security, you're going to want readers with special hardware in it to protect the security of keys used in them, etc.
Right. And does this extend out to also covering off the token technologies?
So it covers the token technologies from like the one for your cards and for your mobile credentials and your QR codes. So the things it doesn't cover at the moment are things like if you've got number plate recognition and things, but we are looking to be expanding this as we go.
And just, it would be really good at the moment just for you to give a summary of the Gallagher view of the strength and which technologies should and shouldn't be used. So maybe if you can start off down at the low end and work up to where we believe it's secure enough.
Gallagher's been around for many, many years. And so we've got a lot of legacy technologies which are there primarily for compatibility and to give users on those technologies the ability to migrate off them towards a more secure technology. So those less secure technologies are stuff like 125 kilohertz cards, MyFair Classic cards. There's 3 kind of more secure card technologies, which are MyFair Plus, DesFire EV1 and DesFire EV2. Our recommendation is to be heading towards DesFire EV2 at the moment, where there's no problems as such with DesFire EV1 or with MyFair Plus currently, but we are certainly putting all our development efforts into DesFire EV2. It's got some additional security features, and we've been developing things on top of that to help you manage your keys a lot better, which work primarily with the DesFire cards.
Rob, following on from that discussion about the card technologies and the ones we recommend and don't, we've done some more work in the server to help people manage the different technologies available on our readers. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so historically you've always been able to configure what card technologies a reader will accept at the individual reader level. This actually got very complicated on sites when they were doing migrations, having to go to every reader and update them. So what we've added now is the ability for readers to follow the site default and actually have a site default setting. So you can turn off legacy technologies on all your readers a lot quicker and be a lot more certain you haven't missed one.
Just recently in September, we've issued some new vulnerabilities CVEs and published those. What's a little bit different about the process we've done this time, Rob?
So this time, this actually started with the CVs for our 830 MR1 release. And what we've done is we've done a more tiered release here. So we've notified our installer partners with a bit of time ahead of the fact that there are going to be some CVs, and kind of just a very high level view of what components have been affected, be it a server, controller, workstation, and what the highest level on the CVSS score is for each of those areas. And what this allows is for our installer partners to actually plan out some of the upgrades and potentially get through some of those before we've told the world about security vulnerabilities, with the aim of making sure that as many sites as possible have actually been upgraded and no longer vulnerable by the time we're actually publishing any details.
And why is that?
Essentially, when you publish a CVE or details of a vulnerability, there's a time period where people who wish to exploit such a vulnerability can actually be looking at what you've said about the vulnerability and trying to work out how or if they can exploit that. While we don't want to not publish it, because if we didn't publish at all, the customers wouldn't actually know that there was a vulnerability there they needed to fix. So it's a balancing act of making sure people know, but trying to give our customers a head start on getting the security for their site up before anyone else is looking at it with more malicious intent.
The final section for this version 840 podcast is our perimeter products. So back in 2018, I was lucky enough to get to a site in Dubai. It's a water processing plant called Dewa. And they are right by the sea and with lots of salt water, and being a desalination plant, the water coming out of that, it's got a huge amount of salt in it. They were having problems. So Jim Rayner is our business analyst on this project. Jim, can you tell us what we did for Dewa?
Yeah, so Dewa was a really interesting backstory for how we approached these problems. So Dewa had a problem out with their installation of their monitored pulsed fences over in Dubai. And where they'd installed the fences was a really harsh condition, so they get massive temperature drops between night and day, and that's matched by massive humidity drops during the day as well. And being located next to the ocean with all the salt spray, we end up seeing all this contaminant piling up on the fence, and that does two things. Firstly, it reduces the ability of the fence to maintain its physical integrity, so they were seeing wires breaking, they were seeing hardware failing. And the other part of the problem they were seeing was they were getting lots of false alarms, because they'd see a massive voltage drop during the day, which could be interpreted as an attack, but they were getting lots of false alarms. So what I really liked about this is we did what Gallagher usually do. We kind of send a couple of engineers out into the desert and tell them not to come back until they've found a solution to the problem. And they went to Dubai for a couple of weeks and did what engineers do. So they do their measurements, they take photographs, they make graphs, they get all the information they need to bring back to head office. And when they did come back to head office, they sat in a room for a couple of weeks and came up with a solution. And there were two parts to the solution. So the first part was the hardware, and that was to find a metal more suited to that nasty environment out by the sea. And the second solution was adaptive thresholds. So that's how the adaptive thresholds feature came to be.
Cool. And exactly how does that work?
So the term adaptive thresholds refers to our ability to change the alarm threshold to suit the local environment. So over in Dewa, what they were seeing was a gradual drop of the return voltage throughout the day as the contaminants piled up on the fence, and eventually that triggers the alarm. But what we've done with adaptive thresholds is we allowed the alarm threshold to adapt to the local environment. So as the return voltage drops down slowly, the alarm threshold drops down to try and prevent those false alarms. Obviously, if there's an attack on the fence and there's a sudden drop, then we raise an alarm, and it just matches that throughout the day.
Cool. And it's working well for them?
Yeah, they're delighted. I think it's a really good outcome for those guys. They're really happy, so they've stopped having to pay for those false alarms all the time, because they're very, very expensive.
And so how does it relate to some of our other customers?
Yeah, so we see corrections have particularly found this really useful. So what they found is they can make their fences more sensitive to an attack, but much more tolerant of environmental effects. So it just gives them just that bit more control to keep the bad guys in.
Cool. Hey, and I'd like to bring in Dave here. So Dave Solly is our product manager for the Perimeter products. Dave, could you just mention a little bit about the stainless steel components we built for that site?
Yeah, so as Jim said, and you saw yourself, Steve, when you were there, the environment that's there is, well, to be fair, it's one of the harshest in the world I've ever been in. And I've been around in mechanical engineering for quite a while. So we actually had to use a very, very high quality duplex stainless steel to be able to survive in this environment. You'll often hear people refer to what they call marine grade stainless steel. That won't even survive here, so that gives you an idea of just how harsh this environment is. So we basically replaced all our fence hardware. All of the metal components in it became high grade duplex stainless steel. So
cool. Okay, and so that product would be available to other sites if they have such a corrosive environment?
Absolutely. I mean, what we do recommend to any of our customers and to our BDMs in the market, if they are dealing with a site that is very, very corrosive or very close to the sea with very high levels of contamination, is that they have a chat to us, and we'll give a little bit of an assessment from an engineering perspective as to how that site's likely to perform. Obviously, the downside of the high-grade stainless steel solution is it comes at a premium price. It is roughly 5 times the price of a standard product, but if you want something to survive in that environment, that's unfortunately the nature of what you've got to deal with.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for that. And let's just move on to the next one. We've done some improvements of the visualization for our monitored pulse fences in our command centre site plans. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so the fence voltage widget is a new feature in site plans for us this time around. As most people will know, we released our new site plans a couple of versions ago, and there's been continuous improvements going on in that space to bring all the functionality that we want through there. And what we find, particularly on large perimeter sites and sites spanning across multiple locations, they used to use a product in the site plans called the value tool, which allowed them to see the voltages from the fence circuits on the fence. So that gave them a very quick reference as to what my fence health is like, for a lack of a better term. They could see when they had alarms based on the voltage levels. With the new widget, it brings a new way of visualising that on the site now. You don't need the voltage displayed. It will display a colour icon depending on the condition of the fence, so you can see it at a snapshot. You can obviously scroll in on that and see more detail as you get closer with the voltage displayed, or fly out menus on the side to run reports and stuff, which is really quite cool.
Cool, good. Hey, and one last thing that's not really part of version 840 is we made a new partnership with a company called Detection Technologies, so maybe you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's actually really quite exciting for us, Steve, in the perimeter world. We've had a gap in our PIDS portfolio, perimeter intrusion detection portfolio, for quite a while for a cable-based system. And we've done a whole heap of research over a number of years with different technologies, different products, trying to find that right fit for the Gallagher system and how we work and how they work and everything else. So we did some testing on our fence of a product from a company at Detection Technologies out of the UK on their products, and lo and behold, it came out trumps. Very, very high performance, very, very great functionality, and easy to use, quick to install, cost effective, all the things that you really need at that space of the market. So we've signed a global distribution agreement with them, and we also have exclusivity for Australia and New Zealand for certain parts of it.
Excellent. So a lot of really good stuff coming out. I hope you've enjoyed hearing directly from our team. Please leave a comment so that we can make the information that we deliver next time much more relevant to your needs. Our 850 version release is scheduled in late May 2021, and if people have found this podcast useful, I will do the same for this version too.